Good morning, everybody. Uh, Here on the McDowell couch and just doing an ad hoc live presentation. So yesterday I put up a clip from there was Catherine Austin Fitts talking about this red button, green button epiphany that she had a number of years back. And it was linked to her subscription page around ESG finance. Now, I'm not a subscriber, so I don't have wealth advisors. And so the cover of that article, which was in 2019, essentially was, will ESG turn the red button green? And this clip that it was just a couple minutes, but she was essentially sort of laying out how she was giving a presentation to an organization called the Spiritual Frontiers Foundation International. And she had this epiphany, and she sort of laid out that there was all this bad stuff going on in the money system. And if we could just hit the red button and stop all of that, would people in the room do it? And that these were good people and they were interested in our spiritual well-being. And she was just so surprised that I think only like one person in the room would hit the red button. And because they were afraid to lose the current situation, which, have their mutual funds value go down or have to pay more in taxes. And so even though these were very spiritual aware people, they weren't willing to push the red button and stop all of the bad behavior with the money system. Which I can see, that's accurate. But she's like, so how do we turn the red button green? And that was sort of the pitch of this thing, like, how do we turn it green? And then this was on a page that was promoting, like it featured prominently, the cover image was ESG finance in 2019. Now, people later in the comments have turned the comments off, but they're like, oh, no, she's here to tell us that there's this Trojan horse, it's a trap. And so this cover, which if you don't have the subscription, you can't read the article, but it wasn't clear from the cover what her position on ESG. It was very tantalizing, like maybe this will turn the red button green, which was what she was saying was her own epiphany. Now, I was looking into yesterday the Spiritual Frontiers Foundation International. And if you Google it, almost everything that comes up is a reference to this speech. Like it's an internal reposting of the speech. It's not, I couldn't really find much at all about the Spiritual Foundation Fellowship International. You would think that they would have a 990 or some presence. I found one link to a person, Alan something, who was connected to science fiction writing. There is a Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship International, which is an awful lot of things. And so if you guys know her, maybe you can ask if she meant fellowship instead of foundation, because if you look at the fellowship, it's all very much about parapsychology and sort of psychic behaviors. And actually, for a while, it had a footprint in Philadelphia, which is where I'm from. And again, Catherine Austin Fitts is a Penn graduate, a Wharton MBA. So, she, I think the address for this fellowship organization was at 18th and Market, which is near the Philadelphia Stock Exchange area. So, I was just like, okay, so I can't really find out much of what was with this foundation, but it's spiritual. And at the time, I have some concerns about this because from all of the research that I've been doing, there is a link between consciousness and money. That's what the Templeton Foundation is. It's about spiritual capital. It's about harnessing our value systems into a monetary system, and that is through this energetic currency trading system. And so I had a lot of people sort of in the comments being like, well, how dare you post this thing? And initially I was just posting it. I didn't really have a commentary about it. I just put it out there, and people are like, well, and I understand, people have been conditioned. They want the solution. Here, give me the solution. I'm willing to totally pay you a subscription price to have you preserve my wealth, my family wealth. And a lot of people do. And then when they're bought in, they feel like they're part of this club with the insider information and they're going to protect themselves. But is it bumpy? Someone's saying there's a problem with my feed. It's connected in. Who knows? I'm just going to keep going. So they, so people want to feel like there's a solution. So Allison, what's your solution? And I'm saying, guys, you don't actually understand the problem. And a lot of people that you're paying money to and buying products from, they don't understand the nature of the problem either. Or if they did, they're not telling you. And so what I'm trying to say here is that I labeled this feed like central banking or cybernetics. And so I have an article here from 2012 that was in the International Business Times, Profit in the Investment Ecosystem by Catherine Austin Fitts. And, because I'm just curious, like where Catherine Austin Fitts is and all of the Solari people, her all many affiliates, where are they in tokenomics? Where are they talking about planned cyber, not just central bank digital currency, right? Because everybody's got their bead on that. Like, oh, I had someone, oh, Allison, do you not know about the Bank of International Settlements? Well, I do, actually. I've been looking very deeply into the role of the Federal Reserve in community development and the education reskilling space for a very long time. So I've been in this space. I mean, how much do I need to do the deepest dive into all the things? Like I'm going to, I put a link out for the Bank of International Settlements. They're having a 2-day summit next week. And so I'll probably check some of that out. And I know central banks have central banks, but the problem is that all of the people who are following like the sovereign wealth and the money and the financial dealers, I have to say, like, they're coming at it from a preserve your wealth standpoint. That's it, right? They're like, how do you preserve your wealth? Now, this idea of wealth is that one, like you have more than other people, or that wouldn't be wealth. Like if there wasn't some metric that you had more than other people, you wouldn't be wealthy. Like the whole idea of wealth is kind of messed up. I mean, honestly, there's a way of wanting to have enough to make sure your family is taken care of or whatever. But this idea of chasing the wealth and having the game, like what you're paying for, if you're paying for a Solari report, is her expertise as a Wharton alumna. And not only that, like I hadn't read the whole bio, but this paper is describing her as, graduate of Penn in history, 1974, Wharton School MBA, Master's of Business Administration and Finance, 78. She studied Mandarin at the University of Hong Kong, attended summer school at Harvard and Stanford, and spent a sabbatical at MIT. All right. So when you're buying this, when you're buying her expertise, that's what you're buying, right? You're buying her access to the circles of the people who have set up the prison, essentially. And so, and she's a whistleblower, all of that with HUD or whatever, but she won't actually talk about pay for success housing. And what I'm trying to say here is there are a bunch of people who are snippy, like, oh, Allison, you're just not so nice in the comments, and you're like nice online, but you're not nice to me in the comments. It's because people don't get it. And you don't get it because you're actually paying attention to people. You're buying subscriptions to Wharton MBA people. You're not doing your own work. You're not taking this information and applying it. And my frame is from poverty management, not wealth security. And that's a difference. And you know what? If you're coming into this space because you want to all be about the wealth stuff and your sovereign wealth and figuring out how to play the game to make your sovereign, okay, you choose that. But I'm not here to make friends with you. That's not why I'm showing up here, to deal with the social contract. And if you think that you're going to preserve your wealth in Web3 tokenomics by somehow like having Solari report secret sauce, I think you're kidding yourself. Badly. And you're doing yourself and humanity and life on this planet a disservice in that. Because people want to think it's about money. And that's why everybody can talk about the central banks. Let's talk about the central banks. Well, what is money? Money is a store of value, fine. But it's a coordinating mechanism. And that's why it's connected to cybernetics. It's and this all of this thing, like, I don't know, I was looking at the Corey's dig stuff. Oh, let me tell you how you're being programmed or how you're being, managed propaganda. You're being steered. This is cybernetic steering. This is a core concept that you have to get under your belt. So if you just want to talk about black budgets and deep state shenanigans and the mafia and money laundering and all of the secret space. You can do that. But if you don't actually bring in the cybernetic piece and understand money as cybernetics, you're going to miss it. You're going to totally miss it. And so her framing is about like, let's build family wealth. Let's build community wealth. Well, if you're not talking about the fact that the next phase is digital public goods, they're going to invest in society and the quote unquote betterment of society. This is going to be a society where they're going to tell us what is a public good. So if what you're saying is that your main frame of investment advice is building family wealth or social wealth, and you're not actually unpacking all the stuff with Web3, not just the crypto stuff, because I saw a clip of her talking about, well, let me tell you, I think Bitcoin is just all these things are, experiments in the central bank digital currency, and they're getting that all to play out, and so they don't have to pay for developing it and whatever. It's more than a financial system. It's a token system tied to the Internet of Things. It's a token system tied to coordinating us with the natural world, all from the satellite systems. This is what that is. And so, if you're going to back a dude who's setting up blockchain freedom cells, who's like asserting child sovereignty and the idea of crypto card gaming for poor children to make it in the global south as part of some global investor aligned gaming system, you're off your rocker. And this person literally, when I privately was trying to clarify with her, because this all came out in an interview Derek Broth had with Catherine Austin Fitts, like, what is your position? Are you backing this philosophy? She's like, oh no, you're totally misrepresented, Derek. I'm like, here are the screenshots where he said child sovereignty. This is what you should do, the card games. Now, if you understand community wealth, you're going to understand that what's coming is investing in people. Investing in natural capital. Now, she can say, oh, we're not doing ESG. Like, that's the wokey woke thing. We'll do some other kind of investment category. Well, what is it? Catherine, what's your green button? That's not ESG. That's not tokenomics. How are you keeping your green button out of the tokenomics ecosystem, out of the Web3 ecosystem? I'd like to know. Or all you subscribers, like, read the article. Can you tell me where her green button is if it's not ESG? Because as far as I can tell, this is word spells. This is word spells. So you label something ESG and you're like, oh no, we're not doing that kind. We're doing our other kind of community wealth building. Well, what does that look like? This is just like Jeff Sandifer at the Acton Academy saying, oh, we're not doing the Chinese social credit score. We're good capitalists. We're doing the capitalist human capital rating system. Well, you put people's brain in a box and you give them a word. And this is what happens when you just consume a bunch of other people's content. And yeah, I'm here, I'm not making money on this content, but I'm here to say, like, do your homework and look it up. Look it up for yourself and don't use their words. Make your own assessment of what's going on. Because if Catherine Austin Fitts is all about like investing in community, but not talking about tokenomics and Heckman and pre-K finance debt, something's wrong there. She's getting the Wharton alumni magazines. I don't know. Maybe she's getting the other ones from her other, the digital currency, e-government solutions places that she, took classes at. Stanford, Harvard, MIT. She's got all of them in there. Like, how many emails? She's doing the intelligence to what? To help some people, her subscriber, build wealth. Is that the frame you're using? That's what I'm asking you. If what you're about is how to win in the game of Web3, and you're willing to pay Catherine a subscription, fine, do that. But don't imagine that somehow you're superior to all the other people, right? Like, it's not, your conscience is not clean, is what I'm saying. So I just want to go through, this is an article from 2012. Because everyone's like, oh, I've never heard Catherine say anything that would indicate any sort of problem. Well, what I'm saying is, if she's not unpacking Web3 tokenomics and social prescribing and community management tied to the sensor networks, and she's backing up a guy who would assert that the answer to child poverty in the global south is crypto gaming, and that child sovereignty is even a thing that you should be putting out there, I don't know what to tell you. So, okay. So this is from the International Business Times. It's called Profit in the Investment Ecosystem, Catherine Austin Fitts. I will put a link to this so you can read this yourself. I'm not going to read the whole, it's a pretty long interview, but so I highlighted some sections that I found concerning. So here, our goal is to help readers, subscribers, and client build family wealth. Okay, so when I went into the education research that I was doing, what I saw in global education futures was this idea of people-naires. You would have billionaires who would have portfolios of people. Okay, now I know she knows all this because she's talked about slavery and the post-slavery years and Reconstruction, right? They're financializing people. There's some quote in here about Enron, like not knowing about Enron. Well, the same people are investing in children as pre-K debt instruments. Now, Catherine Austin Fitts isn't an activist. She's a wealth investor. Like, she's a wealth advisor. So yeah, okay, you could just say her role isn't actually to protect pre-K kids from this, and she's not down for telling you about the pre-K debt finance stuff. But if it says we believe the success of the family depends on the success and building of community wealth. So the stream that I did with Lynn on the Flow Life, we went into some detail about Galila Benartzi and Bancor, which is a clearinghouse for the tokens, and how she was working on community currency called Levs, which is hearts, in Israel, and that they were working on a digital bartering system for mothers in Israel to barter cooking time, carpool, various things. So this is about tokenizing the informal economy. Now, I'm sure that she would say like, oh, I'm not for that. But then, so tell me your green button answer, right? Because it's kind of like the whole freedom cell narrative. If you think you're escaping, you don't actually understand how it works. You don't understand, macro eyes surveillance view. You don't understand how the surveillance works. You don't understand the geoengineering and how it impacts, all of the soil and the water. Like, unless you've got some sort of underground bunker that you've set up for your 8-person freedom cell, like, just pulling out, it's not gonna, like, there's not a compelling way to do the community stuff. So if you're talking about community wealth building and you're not talking about the other pieces, I feel like this is a major problem, because this idea of a community-based bartering token, which is the kind of stuff that I'm sure the freedom cells would be promoting, because why would you have blockchain for a local freedom cell? You don't need that technology unless you're part of a global gig economy. Then, you don't need those tokens. You don't need that infrastructure set up. But Bernard Lietaer, who developed the euro, he called for an ecology of money. What Bernard Lietaer said is, have a primary currency, and that'll be the central bank digital currency, and then have an ecology of money. We want an ecology of money because we want those trading of the signals. That's social intelligence. That is pattern recognition. That is what allows us to be machine readable. So that is what Will Ruddock is doing in grassroots economics, and Serafu in Kenya. He for a time he was working with Bancor. That is a signaling system. It's a coordination mechanism for cybernetics and for collective emergence and for complexity theory and for using the built environment and human capital set against natural capital as this dynamics for a complex adaptive system, for really, in my mind, as far as I can tell, creating some sort of biohybrid supercomputer. But if you're just stewing around and like, let me tell you more about the Bank of International Settlements, like, let me tell you about the black budget. You're not actually getting, so why? Right? And so she talks about being concerned about the centralization of the economy. And I will admit, at some point, the BIS is talking about having an ultimate ledger. What they're developing is an interactive nodes of humanity, of coordinated humanity, used as a massive neural network. That is Oliver Reiser's world brain. So they're going to but that is all decentralized. So we are neurons, we are nodes, we are neurons exchanging energy as this digital unit system that will be framed as a collective, will be framed as a digital public good. This will be framed as the ecology of money, not the central bank digital currency. Now, I'm not going to say there's not going to be one. There's going to be one. It'll probably be somewhere up at the higher levels of the JP Morgans or whatever. But they want a bunch of moms trading quote unquote digital hearts. They want to put the Hong Kong informal economy, their time sharing on blockchain. And they're going to say that, oh, what? Guess what? This is the answer. This is the answer to central bank digital currency. This is decentralized. They're centralized. We're decentralized. Well, it's all going to shuntle up to the ultimate ledger, but it's going to come through the decentralized, the massive amounts of data coordination for complex emergence are going to come through the decentralized piece of it. And that's the steering, and that's the cybernetics. And that is why it needs to be open source, and it needs to be framed as a public good, and it needs to be, essentially, they have to figure out some way of threading the left and the right leaning groups, like, okay, libertarians, you get your independence, and anarchists, you get your planned social economy, and it's you meet around the bend in the tokenomics space. And they're not talking about that. They're not. Like, the Solari report, Stable of People, they're like, let me tell you some more about the central banks and centralization. Let me tell you some more about CB. Let me tell you some more about eating bugs. They're not going to tell you about social prescribing. That's coming out of Britain. That's not coming out of China, the social prescribing stuff. So anyway, this idea of somehow building communal wealth and not taking into account tokenomics and the sensor networking systems and pretending that maybe it's somewhere else rather than integral, and that, like, if you have your little whole freedom cell culture people that you're backing and they're on blockchain, that's not part of it somehow. It is. And it is for the nodes and the complexity theory and the social physics. So, okay. So then she goes on to say, so it's extremely important that everyone in the family builds skills at endeavors that either lower expenses or allow them to generate income in something sustainable. All right. So you've got that. You've got skills and in sustainable income generation. Okay. And then she goes on to say, let's see, one of the most draining things to see is the tremendous number of young people, our children and grandchildren, spending a fortune for college and graduate school, for a college and graduate school education that really doesn't prepare them for the future. They study things that were useful 20 years ago, but not what they need for careers in robotics and advanced manufacturing. That's an example in terms of intellectual capital where we're trying to protect people from debasing their assets. So I'm going to read this again. Now, everyone out there is like, I've never heard Catherine Austin Fitts say a single thing that I have a problem with, right? So in 2012, she's saying that traditional education is not worthwhile, and what you should be getting young people to focus on is robotics and advanced manufacturing. So that's nanotechnology. That's smart materials. She's saying, and that is your intellectual capital. Those are your sustainable skills. Sustainable skills. In 2012, like, that's her call. So this is the post-economic crash. Young people need to be studying robotics and advanced manufacturing. It's right here. I'll put the link, right? But I'm just saying, this is the world she imagines being built for all the people who are subscribing to her wealth saving portfolio. So but are we thinking that people are just going to decide not to go to Penn anymore? Not to go to Wharton? Because that's not useful? No, there's going to be a class of people like her who go to the Ivy League schools, and they're not actually going to be required to do the robotics, because that's what they're going to train the black and brown girls of the global South to do. Because they're going to be the human capital impact investments. That's what the people with the Wharton MBAs are going to be investing in. They're going to be investing in somebody else's social capital. And it's going to be good capitalism, right? And so I find that really concerning, that that is her assessment, that you need to have skills, they need to be sustainable, and that one of the most draining things to see is the tremendous number of young people, our children and grandchildren, spending a fortune for college and graduate school education that really don't prepare them for the future. They study things that were useful 20 years ago, but not what they need for careers in robotics and advanced manufacturing. Okay. All right, so that's page 2. Let's see. I used to work in the energy finance group at Dillon Reed. So all of this is about energy futures trading. Like I said, if you're paying, I'm sure she has some good insider information. But everybody who's around the margins thinking that this might be for regular people or poor people, I think you're out of luck on that. Okay. This is about energy futures trading, and this is exactly what I've been talking about with Lynn in the Flow Life situation that we had, because a lot of this backs into Texas and backs into energies futures trading. Okay, we are going through a reset between the value of real things and the value of paper, because the paper is very bubbled and overvalued, and it's being reset down to the real thing. So she's talking about like buying real stuff. But at this point, what is the real stuff? What is real other than maybe land? But even if you buy the land, again, we're still dealing with this idea that you're going to go off grid and have some self-sustaining thing. They're wrecking the environment on a global scale. So I think that's a bit disingenuous. And she goes on and on about like gold and silver and that stuff. And I guess that's real too. Okay, so this goes on. This is a quote from Catherine Austin Fitts. I focus a lot on technology. As we get this reset between paper and tangibles, and we have more and more people on the planet with a fixed, limited supply of resources, the pressure is on to use technology to help us figure out how to do more with less. So I'm just like, read between the lines here. Okay, I focus on technology. We're on a planet with a fixed, limited supply of resources, and the pressure is on to use technology to help us figure out how to do more with less. There's been a tremendous investment globally in new technology, and of course, we're experiencing the explosion in digital and telecommunications technology. That's the open air prison, okay? And the shift from desktop to the smartphone, with billions of people going online and communicating in unprecedented ways. We're also looking at very exciting new developments in advanced manufacturing and other material technologies, all right? So she's pushing telecoms and she's pushing advanced materials development, and that's nanotechnology. And the framing here is, again, perfectly compatible with the circular economy, with all of this, with the Malthusian frame. Okay, one of the most important issues going forward is how much technology will permit us to make fewer resources go further. Okay, so we should be asking that. Okay, so that's section 3. Okay, so there, this is from her. So about like how to keep making money. I am very keen on finding companies, products, and services that add value. That can be a telephone company, an educational company, you name it. It's the bread and butter of what businesses do. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. If now, again, maybe she has a difference of opinion and she wouldn't be promoting telecom investments, and I don't know what education companies she means, like Pearson, like K-12, like virtual learning schools, like charter schools. What educational companies are she talking? Because that's the door I came in. It was like, get your hands off my public school education. I just don't even need a company doing that. But here she's saying to preserve your wealth, right? Don't invest in those old-timey skills that you had 20 years ago. You need to do, don't spend a fortune on that. Develop some sustainable skills for our limited resource technology-driven world, and invest in your telephone company. That's the thing. The telephone company is going to run the open air prison, the telephone company and your cable company. So, I had Allison, you're just not nice in your comments, and we're ready for solutions. Can't you tell us this? Like, here's somebody, I pay a subscription, so I want a solution. Well, I'm telling you, there isn't an easy solution if you actually understood the problem. The problem isn't just the central banks. I mean, yeah, it sucks that they want to have an ultimate ledger, But it's going to be the people selling you, let me put your informal economy on blockchain. It's going to be all the people running around telling you, like, hey, come join our freedom movement. We've got a whole blockchain thing going on over here. You don't actually understand the problem. And what I'm trying to do is like lay enough crumbs out there for you to actually do, like, build on, develop your own compass for it, develop your own language. Because, as soon as she throws up the thing, like, could ESG be the answer to the red button problem? Like, pay the subscription and find out inside. Oh, no, inside we're going to actually tell you that it's a Trojan horse, but only for subscribers, but that's dog whistling, because that's using this encoded language that they've set up. It's just like the Chinese social credit score, which, again, I will say I fell for that early on because I didn't have the context. I hadn't done my own research, but I'm like, oh no, because they're going to sell you the capitalist version of your GitHub rating so that you can do your gig coding work, right? That's your digital driver's license. That's all of these other things. So, yeah, I'm not saying don't pay attention to the central banks, but if those are the things you're talking about and not getting to Web3 and not interrogating the technology, like, again, we're living in a world of robots, advanced manufacturing, and skills building for sustainable wealth. And we're not going to talk about Jim Heckman? Really? Really? Well, so maybe that works for your subscribers. Maybe that works for Larry's subscribers. It doesn't work for me as a mom trying to protect kids being put in Head Start on surveillance play tables. And yeah, if any of you guys have seen her stable of people talking about, like, specifically the impacts on the poor and the working class, like, that's, let me know. Okay. So basically my philosophy is looking at the total economic return of a company as a navigation tool to help me find companies I think can perform over the long term for investors because they create wealth of some sort. So tell me what the companies are. Tell me what the companies are that aren't going to be like, do you have green button companies now that would replace telecom and educational companies? What are they? Or are the subscribers, those of you who are out there in my comments being like, oh my God, she didn't say that. She's against all of these things. Well, tell me, what is her green button investment recommendation at this point? What is it? Oh, or no, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for that information, right? Okay, so here she's saying, ever since Kennedy was assassinated, a remarkably constant group of people has been doing everything they can to centralize political and economic control into very tight hands. So again, since Kennedy was assassinated. So I would say the framing here is important. I think the whole Kennedy thing is just on both sides stuff to get people, like, caught up in a certain story. I think that the core of this phase was the Macy conferences. The core of this phase was Norbert Wiener and Arturo Rosenbluth programming the animal and the machine, and doing that through the heart space, and understanding that the heart space is electric and it's bioelectric, and that all of these tokenomics programs are part of that cybernetic program. And this idea that you're going to have a community currency framed as an like, so what's going to happen is they've all been talking about central bank, right? They don't talk about digital public goods. They don't really talk, like, as a concern about open source, about digital public goods, about tokenomics, about token engineering. That the crypto is set up as the awful thing, the CBDC. Oh, and then whoop, we're going to swing back over to the good use of digital money. And that digital money is about using our energetics, tapping into our energetic field in terms of these social transactions to train the machine in pattern recognition and to manage us cybernetically. And the built environment and the sensor networks of the built environment are part of the social computer system, the human computational system, the ant computer. That's what it's about, the emergence. Now, I can't tell you what the ultimate function of the global biohybrid supercomputer is. I don't know. I would, I don't have any, but if you look at all of the pieces together, what they're doing is they want to tag you. They want to tag the environment. They want to tag the animals. They want to tag everything. They want to create everything within a circuit that is controllable. They're going to tell you whatever story they need to tell you to get you to agree to be on the circuit. Um, and then they're gonna start running us through some sort of processing systems. And so if you want to talk about Kennedy and centralization, guess what? You're not going to talk about decentralization. You're not going to be talking about the open source. You're not going to be talking about the token engineering. You're not going to be talking about the ant computer. You're really going to narrow the focus down to something that, people have been trained. The truther communities, the deep state communities, they've been trained to understand, okay, this is the story, guys. Here's the story. And then we'll do some little information leaks here and there just to keep your interest up. But what we're saying is subscribe to us and we'll save you the time from having to do your own research, and we'll save you the time from having to think your own thoughts. And, and we'll tell you certain stories, but we're not going to tell you these other stories. And I would love to be wrong. I would love to have some easy solution that you all could pay me, I don't know, $50 a year, and then I would give you the solution, and we would have our own little club of people who are like surviving. I mean, I wouldn't really, but I wish I had an answer that I could just give away for free, and that we could keep everybody off of blockchain, and that we could disrupt all of the sensor networks, and we could build our own energetic power outside of this. But right now, I'm not seeing a lot of positive stuff in the influencer space or any of these other spaces. And I need help. I mean, I just told Deepti today, I feel like taking a year or two off, and then maybe people will catch up. I mean, I have hundreds of hours of content laying it all out. Like this is how they're building these computer machines. But people are pissy because they want someone to give them the solution. We're ready for solutions. Why are you so grumpy? We're ready for the solution time. But for God's sake, y'all don't even understand the nature of the problem. Most of you. I mean, you don't. And you're trailing people around who are just keeping you going in circles. So yeah, it's about centralized decentralization. So if what you're going to do is to swing it into just about centralization and not talk about decentralization, you're part of the problem. Yes. Make no mistake about it. It is the centralization of the economy that is being engineered with government money and government credit. So we've entered the decentralization phase. Am I using my time, attention, and assets to do things that are wealth building for my society, my community, and me? So yeah, I'd like to know what the green button is. If it's not ESG, what is that? Are the paid members who are investing in the community wealth building allowed to tell the rest of us peons what that is? Okay, so talking about volatility. Volatility comes in all sorts of games that magnify swings in the market. In this environment, it's important to have a good sense of where you want to go, understand what the values are, and not let yourself be tricked by short-term volatility. And so what we're talking about having volatility in is everything financialized as a digital tradable asset. And it's going to be sold to us as a public good, and it's going to be sold to us as like technology and advanced manufacturing and doing more with less and building wealth. That's what I've got to say. So if you need to be in that space with the wealth builders, you can totally be there. That's not the space that I'm working in. That's I'm in the space to try to understand the different stories, the stories that get left out, to chart it out, to lay out, okay, who are the players? It's not just the central banks, it's your church, guys. It's your synagogue. It's your mosque. The people who are going to give you the skills to train up the babies in the robotics. Yeah, they're probably going to be doing it in a church basement pretty soon. And they're going to say it's good. It's good because, we don't have enough resources. And so, all the narratives that are out there, like, I would say if people are still on social media, just spend one day and look at the themes, look at the words that are being used, because each of those words is a spell that they want to hand you. They want to hand you the language to talk about this. And in this limited set of languages, it's going to obscure all of the bigger things that you need to know. And I wish, like I said, I wish I had an answer. I would, if I haven't had an easy answer, I would give it to people. But the answer is us together. That's what it is. And it's all the voices coming together to say, we know about cybernetics. We know that money isn't just a store of value, that it is a signals intelligence system. We know that they're training the nature of money to create this decentralized signals intelligence network to try to converge us into a hive mind consciousness. And I would say if you look around at the solutions, a lot of them are like, here, I have a graphene phone to sell you. Or I have a product. Let me, sell you this product. I don't think that there's any product that you're going to buy that's going to get us out of here. Just think about the narratives. There's a whole lot of people who are really comfortable with, like, I'm a consumer model. I want to pay the price for the thing and buy the information and get myself ahead of the other people. And I guess that's the American way, right? That's how we do things. And that's why I keep sort of insisting that I don't think it's the right way to do things. And I think we have to come to terms with, not to make everybody who does that bad. I'm not trying to say those are bad people, but I think it's limiting. I don't think it's going to give us a view that's going to help us find our way out. So, anyway, I'm happy to use, I turned off the comments because actually I deleted a bunch of people off my page, and, I'm going to leave this one up, and I'm happy to use this as a screening tool, that if, like the Naomi Wolf, if you would like to live in the Puritan contract covenant story, you can do that, but not around me. And if you want to live in the wealth building, I want to invest in companies that add value so we can push the green button, but not the ESG button, some other kind of green button. You can do that and you can back that up, but I'll just use this as a screening tool, and it'll make my life a little bit easier. This is not an open speech space. So anyway, just had to get that off my chest this morning. I've got a quilt to bind. So see you later.